Hello, 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 my beautiful, perfect, amazing, stunning, iconic, dancing unicorn butterfly fairies. Welcome back to AG University Podcast. It is I, your host and your professor at Anna Grace Newell on all major platforms and at AG University Podcast on Instagram now as well. If you're interested in learning more about angel readings and Akashic records, all that information is posted on Instagram as well. Lots of fun stuff happening on TikTok. I've been getting a little bit more into doing some somatic dance practices, which is a little bit of an Easter egg for some future activities that are to come. That's all I'm going to say. And I didn't name us the Dancing Unicorns for nothing, okay? So if you're new here, hi, my name is Anna Grace Newell. I am an Akashic Records practitioner, clairvoyant, medium, intuitive guide, and podcaster, full-time content creator, and now dance leader, head dancing unicorn. So I dabble in lots of things. And if you're wondering what the heck are the Akashic records, I get that question every single day of my life. It is connecting with a super high vibrational frequency, a high vibrational plane of unconditional love, aka angel readings. And if you want to learn how I got started into this work, as always, check out episode number 1. Today we have a really exciting episode, and this episode is for the girls. I mean, my whole podcast is for the girls, but sometimes it could be for, anybody, but this one is for my ladies who ever struggle with being a mom and feeling selfish, and also now this part could be for anybody who wants to spice up their sex life. Let me tell you, Amanda Fowler, she's coming on the pod, the queen. She is the most authentic, realist creator. I never miss one of her posts. She does a lot of vlog style. She's a mom of 2 littles. Her Instagram bio says full-time MILF. Slay. I love that so much. And she just gives so much amazing advice on how to balance everything that she has going on. And it's a lot. And I know everybody listening can relate to that. Maybe you're a mom. Maybe you want to be a mom someday. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, we're all freaking busy. Okay. And Amanda just has such a great story, such a great spirit and attitude about her. And she always really challenges my perspective. Like, she always asks a lot of questions. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've never thought about that. Like, I feel like she kind of goes deep and you're just like, yeah, I was thinking that too, or I want to ask that question now too. She's also an amazing podcast host. I actually went on her podcast over a year ago and I remember being like, damn, she's an incredible interviewer. And now she is a podcast host with her and her husband, and it's called What's the Recipe? And it's all about basically formulating a recipe for success. They interview a lot of couples and they share a lot of success that they've had in their relationship, being together for 10 years and having 2 littles. She also has an iconic segment on her Instagram, and that's really what we kind of go into today, about how to keep your sex life bomb. And it's not like the typical things that you would think, like bring in freaky toys and handcuffs and blah, blah, blah. It's not. It's all about understanding true intimacy on an energetic level. And I'm obsessed with that because I think that not only do we need that to have like experience intimacy towards ourselves, but also towards our partner. It is so important. And she gives some really good advice that I had never heard before. And I think about it every day with Austin. I'm like, I am not going to do this thing because Amanda told me not to. And you guys will hear, so just keep listening. And also, in the spirit of keeping our sex life bomb, I love that that's the title of her segment, because I, of course, had to send her some of my aphrodisiac bombs as a thank you for coming on the podcast. And you guys, if you're new here, first of all, I'm off the liver detox. I am yeeting fruit and smoothies to my face. I had to go 30 days without sugar for a medical detox. And I'm so excited that it ended in perfect timing. One, because I've learned so much about how important it is to have a healthy, balanced blood sugar. And like, the timing is just too divine for this collaboration, because that is literally the mantra and mission of Blender Bombs, is bringing mind, body, spirit into balance. Blender Bomb's main function is balancing blood sugar, along with having like every essential amino acid packed with superfoods. It is like the most nourishing ball that you could put in your smoothie. You blend them up. And so we paired up for the month of February to do a limited edition collab, AG University times Blender Bombs, and it's the Love Bomb. And it is, I'm not even being biased, and I give Blender Bombs full credit for like truly like coming up with the recipe. I just like gave my final stamp of approval. It is fucking delicious. It's so good. You could eat them by themselves. You can like crunch them up like granola over yogurt. You can blend them up in a smoothie. You can put them on oatmeal. They're delicious. They have all of our hormone balancing maca, lots of additives and adaptogens, right? That's like our sexual energy. That's what these blender bombs. That's why it's the aphrodisiac bomb. They're just amazing. Okay. And I love blender bombs and we love Helen. She's our queen. And this is such a good hack if you're wanting to get your blood sugar a little bit more into balance. The reason that it's important is I've learned this because I went on a sugar detox is that one, all of my like random mood swings, reaching for random cravings, or just like eating more sugar than I needed to, gone. So that's another amazing thing. Like if you put a blender bomb smoothie in your life at some point in the day, you are going to be more satisfied and make healthier choices for the rest of the day because you're prioritizing your body's needs and nourishing on a soul level. So can't say enough good things about them. Also, right now, love bombs. If you purchase a love bomb, and there's a post on at AG University podcast Instagram where you can comment and interact with a giveaway. You can win one 60-minute free Akashic Records reading one-on-one with me. As you guys know, my wait list has been pretty poppin', but I'm opening up a spot just for my blender bomb girlies, anybody who tries the product, and it's limited edition. So the odds are in your favor. There's only a certain amount of people that can purchase the bomb, so only a certain amount of people that are entered into this giveaway, and Blender Bombs will be reporting all sales to me at the end of the month, and we'll just pick a name. So that's exciting. You've got a whole month to shop, to try, unless they sell out before the month, which they could. But in the meantime, you got to try them. They're yummy and they're delicious. And it really is just like even divine timing for this podcast because we're talking about how to keep your sex life bomb. And even if you're someone that's like, I'm not having sex with anyone right now, or I'm not interested in that, our sexual energy is so important because it's our energy of creation, creating art, creating life, creating magic in the world so that we can be our boldest, brightest, most authentic version of self. Okay. So it's amazing for every single person listening to this podcast. Alrighty. Without further ado, Amanda Fowler, the most epic content creator, vlogger, mom of two, podcast host. She does it all. She's a fellow projector in human design. And she also just really brought the heat today. So let's freaking go. Amanda, welcome to the show. Happy Wednesday to my favorite dancing unicorns. Fa la 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 la. I am so excited to have my girl Amanda on the podcast. Amanda, welcome to AG University. I've had you on my list to reach out to you for literally a month, and I'm so happy that it's here because I've been dying to talk to you.
Do you start all your podcasts like that?
No.
You should. I love it. I love it. I was going to say that's amazing. But hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, tell us your name, tell us your title, tell us like what are you claiming? What are you owning right now? Tell us about you.
I feel like this has changed so much since 2023, but I'm Amanda. You can find me on Instagram at MANDS Fowler. I was in the holistic health space for a really long time, and I was doing a lot of mindset, belief work. And then I kind of transitioned at the later half of last year into doing podcasting. I've always been a podcaster. I like to say I've always been just an oversharer. I had a blog in 2015, and then I was doing things on Instagram and then TikTok and then YouTube and all the platforms. And I finally kind of stepped into the fact that I love podcasting. I love sharing with my voice. I love using my voice, and I love having conversations. And so that's really where I'm existing mostly right now, is in the podcast space with my husband. We have a podcast called What's the Recipe? And my whole mission is just to empower and inspire people. I just want people to see that they can do the things that they want to do, and then also find the confidence to do those things. So that's really what I'm about, but I'm mostly podcasting right now.
I love that. And I want to talk more about podcasting, but I also just have to brag on you for a second because I was just telling Amanda before we got on the mic that for some reason, Instagram shows me like literally 2 people only, and Amanda is one of them. Like I've like never missed one of her videos. Like the algorithm just serves me Amanda and her family. And I love it because and you do inspire me because I keep telling myself that I need to do more vlogs, like daily vlog content. Y'all, she freaking cranks out more vlog content, and she has 2 small children. I have no excuse. Like she's got her hands full, and she just like slings daily vlog content, and I'm locked the fuck in. Like every day I'm like, what are they doing? I'm invested. Like, where are the kids going? What kind of snacks are we making? What'd you guys buy at Costco? And so You really do. Your content feels so authentic to me, and I just want to let you know I really appreciate it because it's inspiring me. Because I'm like, I keep having it on my list and little pings from the Akashic Records to do more daily vlogs, and I'm like, I see your content. I'm like, okay, it's doable, it's possible. You just make everything look easy, and I know it's not easy, but I just wanted you to know that I really appreciate your point of view.
Well, thank you. And it's funny because you're also one of the people that the algorithm serves me, and I love it because you make me want to dance more. I'm like,
Yay.
fuck, I need to shake some ass more. But I love that, and I think that the vlog content you should do because we were just talking about it too. I think that sometimes, the holistic space and the healing space and the spirituality space can feel really high level, but if you just are able to see that people who are in the spirituality space are also human and do human things on a daily basis, I think that's really captivating. And I think that you also have such a fun personality. Like, I would love to see your vlogs. You need to do it. I'm going to hold you accountable.
Okay, okay, right now on this podcast, deal, handshake. It's happening. Yeah, I really do. I think that I was telling someone on the podcast recently that, I do all these practices and I have all these rituals and all these tips and tricks that I share, but at the end of the day, I feel like I live a very normal life. I think people would expect me to like wake up and I'm like doing a moon dance and Austin's like levitating and like I think people would expect there's like all these things going on, but I'm like it really is super simple. So I want to show like the simplicity to it as well, which I feel like you do. You do that really good. You're just like every single day I'm doing my best and I'm showing up. And that's really all that you can do in order to be successful.
Well, and I feel like when I was being a quote unquote mindset and wellness coach, and I loved it and I love coaching, I will always probably go back to it in the future. But I think I was getting into the title way too much where I felt like I needed to show up as the title versus just showing up as my human self. And I feel like what I've noticed people resonate more with is if they can see themselves in you, if they can resonate with you and you can be relatable to them, you can change their life way more if you're relatable versus being somebody that feels a little like out of touch or feels superior in some way. I think that it's important to show people that you are on the same playing field as them because then they can also do it too. And so I mean, I remember like the switch that I made where I started showing up more authentically on Instagram, and like boom, that's immediately when I started gaining followers, was when I was actually trying to, or not trying, but I was actually showing up just as I am versus like, here's 5 mindset tips that you can do today to like change your life, which nobody fucking wants.
Okay, well, I want to go nitty grittier with that. Like, what was the switch? When were you like, okay, I'm going to vlog every day, or what was the thought process? Because I think a lot of people get caught in just thinking about it, not doing it.
Right. So for me, I was noticing that so I was doing coaching, but I was primarily focusing on group coaching last year. And again, this is why I'm such a believer in the universe, and whatever you're finding resistance against is probably for a reason. And there's something to dig into there because I was kind of having a hard time getting clients. Like, I would get on a lot of discovery calls and then I would pitch myself what the price was, and people would just be so turned off. Or I would be posting on my social media like, hey, I have this new offer, come grab it, come book a discovery call with me. And people were getting turned off, and I kind of just started to realize that. I think the switch that I made was I started to listen to the universe, and I started to listen to what people were doing, the behaviors they were showing me, what they were engaging with on social media, what they weren't. And when I realized that, my coaching wasn't really picking up and things weren't great gaining traction, I was like, is my heart in this? And what I realized is it wasn't. I made a vision board last year too. And I mean, there were so many hearts on it. And I didn't know why at the time. But now looking back, it's because I think 2023 was really the year for me to follow my heart. And so what I realized was I would get on coaching calls, and then, as soon as I got off, instead of writing them an email, I would be like trying to post the social media content that I wanted to post, like the reel that I wanted to post, or post the story that I wanted to post, because that's where my heart was. I've always loved social media. And so I think the switch that I made was that I started listening, but I also started following my heart and being like, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I'm so thankful that I have a husband who is supporting me and my families financially right now. I do have the wiggle room to bet on myself and see if I want to switch and pivot and actually follow my dreams. And so I think it was just a little bit of like, I'm tired of saying I want to do all these things and not actually doing these things. And it's because I was one foot in, one foot out. And so once I actually was like, I'm following my heart, like everything changed.
Oh, that's so good because I feel there are so many times in my life, and I feel like anybody listening can relate, where you're one foot in, one foot out, and then you're like, wait, why isn't this working out for me? I'm like, because for some reason you don't want to go all in because you think you want this thing, but you actually don't. That's actually not what you want. You maybe just think that you want that. There's been so many times in my life I have to go back and I'm like, what do I actually want to create? How do I actually want to show up? And also, it really came back to, for me, is like not getting too lost in the title. Like, it's very hard for me to
Mhm.
quantify who I am. I'm a podcaster. I was a wardrobe stylist. I do fashion. I channel the Akashic Records. Is niche. That's niche content there. Like, it's a lot of things. And so I feel like you really strip back, like, the key is that you're like, this is the Amanda show. This is not like I have to label myself in one type of way. And that, I think, is why we've been so aligned lately, because I have really been showing up on my platforms being like, this is the Anna Grace show, and whatever I feel like talking about or sharing today, you're just gonna get, versus locking myself into this set of rules that, like, okay, if I was an Akashic Records person, this is what they would talk about. Because 90% of the people don't know what the fuck the Akashic Records are, except for all my dancing unis here. Love you guys. But most people don't, you know? So like you said, it's getting back to, I really think that, like, making your business, anybody that's listening, whether it's social media or not, making your business is really just like you leading with the heart and not leading with a label.
It's literally sales 101. And I worked with a business coach last year because I, I had this belief that I was terrible at sales and terrible at running a business. And really, there was like a lot of self-sabotaging tendencies, which we can get into. But I worked with a business coach because I was like, I need to learn the basics. Why am I not landing these discovery calls? Why am I not making, this money when I want to? And for me, it was sales. I had to realize people buy from people. Okay, well, if I want to, have a more engaged social media following, I have to show people who I am because they're going to invest in the person, not the title. They're going to invest in me, not the mindset and wellness coach. And so, literally, you have to go back to like, okay, people buy from people. They don't buy the program because they think that it's going to change their life. They buy your program because they know that your energy is going to be good for them. And so for me, it was really like you're saying, the Amanda show, being the main character. And I mean, I always growing up, like I came out of the womb and it was just like my world and my whole family was living in it. Like that was what my parents always said. And so I kind of I think I lost that because I mean, growing up, like you don't want to be like a self-conceited person in a way, and there's a way to be the main character without being conceited. And I think that I had this belief that like, oh, if it's about me, then it's not about the clients or it's not about the collective, it's not about helping other people. But really, if I'm prioritizing myself and showing up for myself, I'm inspiring other people to do that.
And you are. That's exactly how I felt. That was why I wanted you to come on. I'm like, I've just been consuming all your content and I'm inspired by it. And we got on this Zoom call before and I was like, I don't even really know what we're going to talk about, but I'm just going to let it roll because I just wanted you on. So I would love to talk about that a little bit deeper. You said there's a difference between being a main character or being this quote unquote self-conceited person. And I just want to flag that I think that's a very common thing amongst women. Like, I've always been, I came out of the womb and it was the Anna Grace show. I was like tap dancing. My mom said, like, I mean, I was talking at like an unusual, I was like 16 months old. I'm like, hey, mom. She's like, what the fuck? How do you know how to talk? Like, I came out of the womb talking, chatting, dancing, ready to go. And so, but I had that same moments where, I was in high school and college. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be like the annoying girl. Or for me, the word was always like selfish or self centered. And so I think that's a self sabotaging loop that a lot of women who anybody feels called to starting their own thing or just feels called to being seen in any type of way kind of grapples with. So, with that being said, I would love to hear how you were able to kind of distinguish, like, okay, what is main character energy versus this like self-sabotaging belief of it's self-centered.
I think becoming a mom really allowed me to step into my selfish tendencies without any shame.
Mm.
I am married to a lovely man. I love him to death. He is way more selfless than me. I mean, he will make sure that everyone in the family is good, and then the neighbor across the street before he makes sure himself is good. And
Mm.
that's great. I love him for it. It has its, its pros, right? And all of these things have their pros and cons. But for me, I'm selfish by nature. I'm always going to think of myself first. And I think I was put down a lot for that growing up because people were annoyed. But now that I'm older, I think people were just annoyed that they weren't doing that for themselves versus annoyed that I was doing that. And
Yeah.
so becoming a mom really showed me, oh shit, if I'm not putting myself first, I am going to yell at my kids. Oh, if I am not putting myself first, I am going to be so tired and irritable and not even want to play with them. I'm going to be tired. I don't have any energy. And so for me, I think that I really saw the evidence that, oh, being selfish allows me to show up as a better mom. And therefore, being selfish is actually benefiting everyone around me. And so I think that when you can find something that shows you that this is a good way to be, and it's like a direct result. I think for me the kids aspect, because I think the most important thing for kids is to have a present mom, whether you can be present with them for all day or an hour or 10 minutes. Kids just need like at least 10 minutes of being present, and if I'm not putting myself first, I can't even give them that. And so I think for me, seeing the direct result of, oh, when I do give myself some time to myself and then I give that to my kids, I give that presence to my kids, they are so much happier. They are so much calmer. They're not whining for attention. They're not acting out for attention. And so I was able to just see the evidence. And I think if you're somebody who maybe is around people who are putting you down for being selfish, just maybe like take an inventory of like, okay, what are these tendencies doing for me? What are they giving me? And then what are they giving to the people around me in result of that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think too, as you were saying this, that I feel like this was a college professor or someone that told me this, how we are biologically hardwired to survive. Like we are all inherently selfish. We have to be in order to take care of ourselves and to like continue on as a species. But it's whether or not you choose to look at it through a lens of love or a lens of disgust, right? You're like, oh, but it's bad. I've been taught
Mm.
as a woman it's horrible to be selfish. Oh, yuck. I don't want to be selfish. And it's like, I actually had like one of my really good friends. She would always say that she's like, "Oh, I'm too selfish to blah blah blah, like to do something or whatever." And I used to be like, "Oh man, I would like never say that out loud." But now that I've had like all of this inner work and inner dialogue, I'm like, "No, I get it. I get why she was saying that because at the end of the day, like we are all trying to do our best, put ourselves first so that we can be the best version of ourselves for everybody else and for anybody else listening who maybe you don't have kids, but it could be anybody in your life. It could be your family members, your partner, however people are reacting when, you aren't pouring into yourself. That's kind of like Amanda is saying, your caliber for like knowing, like, okay, I need to prioritize my own needs more because I can see how it's negatively affecting my relationship. And I feel that I notice that a lot with like Austin. I mean, obviously your husband or fiance or anybody listening, significant other is the most like mirrored version of you. Like you just see things in them and you're like, ooh, either that's something that you feel connected to or not. But either way, there is some part of you that relates to like an emotion. And I've noticed that anytime I'm needing, I'm wanting more attention or I'm wanting something from Austin, every single time it goes back to me going, oh, I'm sorry, silly me. I wasn't giving myself that. I don't actually need it from you right now. I just wasn't. I have been busy. And then I go to you being like, I need this from you. Take care of me. And then he'll be like, you need that from you. I can give it to you, but that's not actually what you need. And I'm like, damn. It's so true.
100%. A lot of it is projecting, and I feel like you're going to notice it the most in your relationships. And I think the dynamic is so interesting, but I think that's why self-awareness has to be involved in relationships. You have to have that self-awareness piece so that you know, okay, am I projecting this feeling onto him or her and making it their responsibility? Or is this something I can give to myself? And can I do that first and then see what happens? But I think it's an interesting conversation. And I don't think enough people talk about it because, again, it is taboo. Like, nobody wants to be selfish. But I mean, I can't even tell you how many women, moms particularly, who are in their like 50s or maybe a little bit older, who are like bitter and spiteful because they had to be this martyr archetype for so long when that wasn't what they wanted. And on the flip side, there are those mothers who are in their 50s, 60s, even older, who love their life and love their life because they actually wanted to step into that like selfless being a mother role. But I think the difference is one was chosen and the other one wasn't. And I think if there's anything that I can share for people, whether you're a mom or not, is like you have to advocate for what you need and what you want. You just have to. Nobody else is going to do it. And if you don't, you might go years and years and years of feeling bitter before it's just going to all explode.
Oh, this is reminding me of this TikTok video. I'm going to send it to you after this conversation. I'm also going to link it in the show notes because I cannot remember the creator's name, but I saved it. Okay, so she talks all about the divine feminine principles, and her content is jarring, but I love it because she's like, if you do this one thing, you're going to ruin your entire relationship. And I don't know if it's that dramatic, but I kind of love a hook like that because I'm locked in. I'm like, what?
I
And
do too.
she talks about that. She talks about all, like, she really does advocate for women's needs. I love it. But she's like, don't be the martyr. Don't be this angry rat in the corner that's like, I cook for you, I clean for you, I do everything, and what do you give me? Nothing. Like, it's just like the funniest concept. But it also really goes back to, you talk about a lot about this too, and you have a whole series called How to Keep Your Sex Life Bomb. And you guys got to check out her series because I love it. I watch all the tips. But it's another one that, like, you're like, don't nag your partner when it comes to things all day, because then you start to take on this mother role and nobody wants to fuck their mom. Please tell us more about that. I love it.
So that was my business coach. She is such a boss ass bitch. If you want to look her up on Instagram, if you're in Denver, or I know she does virtual too, she's amazing. She's also a Reiki practitioner and she does breath work, but she also infuses screaming into it.
Mm.
It's amazing. But her Instagram handle is Scream Work with an E. And I worked with her, and she actually worked with Lucas too because he did a 90 days of sobriety because he had an addiction to weed pretty badly, and so he did that and then did alcohol and things like that. But I was telling her that we were doing an inventory. She took me through. It was actually one of the most healing spiritual things that I've done that's actually not even really spiritual. She took me through the whole AA kind of program where you do an inventory on 30 people, places, or things that you resent. And then
Mm.
from there, you extract like what your part is in it so that you're, making sure your side of the road is clean and you're actually aware of the things that you're doing, the behaviors that you're doing that's contributing to this resentment. And it was amazing. And so I was talking to her and I think it just came up and she's like, you cannot mother him. Or I think I was talking about how, like, I want him to go on a spiritual journey. And I think if you're a spiritual person who's into wellness, you're probably a woman in the relationship because the women are just a little bit more ahead. The men are always just like a little bit like they're going to look at what you're doing, but they're not there yet.
Yep.
And so I was like, I want Lucas to like, start meditating. If he could just do this, if he could just do that. And she's like, how is your sex life? And I'm like, it's okay. It's fine. And she's like, you're mothering him. And if you mother him, you're not going to want to fuck him. So stop that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never had anybody call me out of my shit like that. I was like, you are so right. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old for anyone listening who isn't familiar. And I am constantly changing diapers, getting them food, saying, don't do this, Lennox, don't do that, Ellis, don't do this, don't do that. If I'm doing that to my husband too, where is there any room for like sexual tension or attractiveness? It's not attractive if I feel like I have to be in this mother role. And also, a big part of what I'm realizing, even too, through that series that I've been doing, is my stress levels is a direct reflection of how often I want to have sex. And if I'm more stressed, I'm not going to want to. And so for me, if I'm stressed out about like the fact that my husband leaves his clothes on the floor of his bedside, on his bedside, is that doing our relationship any good? Like, really, what is the point? Because the clothes are just going to stay there and he's going to pick them up eventually. My husband is like the person that will be a complete tornado for a week and then do a deep clean on Saturday and be like completely like neat tidy. So I'm like, can I live with this for a week? Or am I going to let this pile of clothes ruin my sex life, ruin my relationship? Because sex is a huge part of a relationship and, bonding and intimacy, and it's sacred. So, yeah, it was a huge eye opening moment for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm mothering him. And that's also why I'm not feeling like that physical attractiveness.
Yeah, yeah, I know you said it on the video. You're like, "You don't wanna fuck your kids, okay? Nobody wants to fuck your
Yeah,
mom." And I was like,
literally.
"Oh, damn." And I think about that. That video lives rent free in my head because Austin is the same way. He's not a messy person. He's actually like he kind of has more perfectionist tendencies than I am, but because I do film content every day in the house, I don't like there to be piles of shit like hanging from my ceiling fan. And like, can you just keep it contained? I don't care. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like he'll eat a bowl of cereal at night before we go to bed, and then he'll leave the cereal bowl out like all night. And I'm just like, can you just put it at least in the sink, and then I will do the dishes. Like sometimes I'm like, could you just meet me halfway? But I really have been thinking, I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth it because all it does is annoy him and it actually makes him not want to do it more. And then he's annoyed with me. And
Hmm.
then that energy is just not sexy. It's just not. I don't even like saying it.
Mm-mm.
It just feels yucky. And it is so true that I do think it like maybe even to like a generation above us, like got trapped in this loop of just like mothering and martyrdom. Is that even a word? Martyrdom?
I think it is actually
But
martyr.
yes.
There is a dumb in there. I know that.
Yeah, there is something. I think they get trapped in this loop and then you wake up one day and you're like, your husband is like, "You're fucking annoying." Like, it's just like whenever anytime my mom yells at me to do something, I'm like, "Can you just stop?" And most of the time, I'm really not gonna do it right then anyways. So I'm like, "You're just yelling at me and
Yeah.
I'm annoyed, and I don't find you attractive." Now,
No,
I'm not saying we need to have some cleanliness, but you guys get what I'm saying.
but I have to add too. I think that for me, whenever I notice that I'm nagging at my husband about the clothes or not doing a chore, it's because I'm not doing a chore. Like it goes back to that projecting thing. It's literally because I feel like I have a mountain of a to-do list that I'm not tackling, and so I want to get it done. So I feel like I need to put some of the tasks on him when it's not his responsibility. And if I just maybe cross one thing off the list, and what I've noticed is if I want to nag but I don't say anything, and instead I just go and give him a hug, gone, gone. I don't feel like I need to say it anymore because I forget how much we actually do need physical touch and how that's so regulating to my nervous system. And so that's a tip. I feel like so many people are like, okay, well, how do you just not, nag on him, or how do you not tell him to do these things? And I'm like, go give him a hug. Go give him a hug. Changes
Mhm.
it.
It does change the energy. I agree. Sometimes I really do feel like you have to create these rituals of connection or intimacy, even if it's just giving a hug. Even sometimes when you're just like, I'm feeling very meh, because it really does change the game. I mean, it releases actual happy chemicals in our head. And then when we're both feeling a little bit happier, a little bit lighter, then some of the things that we need to accomplish are going to get done. And I love what you're saying about how you're projecting. It's like you need to do those things. And then some, like, same with me. Like, I need to clean up because I need to film a vlog. Yet I'm gonna yell at Austin for him to clean up. He's like, "Bitch, I'm not filming a vlog. What? Why are you yelling at me? I'm also working." You know, like
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. So, anyways, I think that I always really try on here to provide examples of like how we project onto partners and how they're everyone is a mirror pushed out. But it's such a like slippery thing to explain. Do you know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain the like
Hmm.
mirror concept. Do you have any way that you can shed some light on that? How everyone mirrors our behavior or our projections at some point?
Yes, I think that was my biggest thing in 2023 too, as I even through that inventory, I feel like my biggest mirrors aren't even my husband, it's my mom and my brother.
Mm,
And these are the two people that like get on my nerves the most, or just like we butt heads the most,
mhm.
or I have something to say about, like I just am like bothered by sometimes. And I think it was the biggest thing of 2023 for me to notice. And I think what I would say to that is mirrors. I think what mirrors really are it's a reflection, but really what it is, it's showing you the behavior. It's like showing your shadows. It's showing you the behavior that you have that is causing a reaction in that person. So if there's like an energy about a person, it's so important for you to ask yourself, well, what energy am I bringing into this? Or what is the behavior that I'm showing up with? And so I think that, it helps you identify where you're, I don't want to say in the wrong, but like where you're also having a hand in like this maybe negative energy or whatever the energy is. It could be a great energy too. Um, and I just think that it speaks to energy. It speaks to how every interaction is. Takes two to tango, and I think it can be tricky if I think it sounds a little bit more like high level than it needs to be because I think it can be um, tricky because I don't think you want to go into every single interaction being
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this person's a mirror to me. What is it going to show me about myself? But I
Right.
think what is important is if you're finding that there's like resentment or there's like a lot of negativity in a conversation with somebody, that's when you want to dig in and be like, okay, let me just take a step back and see what's happening. And I think for me, what I realized is that where my brother and I were butting heads, and he doesn't know all this stuff. This is just like things that I've worked through on my own. Where we
Love.
were butting heads a little bit was I have like fear for him, and he has fear for me. And he has this energy of like, I want to live my life however the fuck I want to live my life. And I have this energy of, I want to live my life however the fuck I want to live my life.
Mm.
But when he was projecting his fear onto me, I was like, why are you doing this? Because I'm just going to live my life how I want. Why can't you just accept it? But I was doing the same thing to him. I was like
Mm.
judging the way that he's living when like, that's the perfect example of a mirror is like, how can you see that you guys are literally doing the same thing to each other? And that's where you get to acceptance. So I think it's helpful when it's, again, a situation where there's maybe like headbutting or conflict or negative energy is seeing what your part is in it and how you can come to an understanding and an acceptance through like empathizing with that person because they're probably feeling the same way as you.
That was what changed my relationship with my mom completely. And I have like a really great mom. She did everything. Like I've all of my needs were met. I have a great mom. My parents have been happily married for 40 years. I don't have shit to complain about, just to preface, because
Same, same.
I always feel bad. Like I'm not trying to dog her, but we could not get along because we are very strong people, both of us. Like my dad and
Yep.
my sister are the same. Me and my mom are the same. Like we just are very strong people. We're gonna do what we want to do. Sorry, this like pink fuzz is flying in my face. We're gonna do what we want to do. And I realized as I got older that all of the things that annoyed me about her, or things that she told me that I was like, why would you ever say that to me? Blah 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 blah. That a lot of that was just like her own insecurity. And then I started to actually feel bad for her. Like, oh, that's so sad that you've never experience true self-love, right? You were critical of yourself, which then turned into being critical towards me, when ultimately like you just want to protect me so that I am, feel worthy of love because you didn't feel that way, which I know, like you said, you don't want to go into you don't want to go into every interaction being like, what is this person going to mirror to me? But I think it's the people that are the closest to you, like your mom or somebody that you can't cut out. And you're like, okay, I've got to see this through a different lens. That's when the mirror theory really comes in, because you're like, you do have to take ownership of your own actions, and you have to take ownership being like, some part of them lies in me. There is a piece of me that I don't like about that, that I'm seeing right now, and I've got to make peace with that.
Do you have a relationship with your grandma or your mom's mom?
So I did, and my mom's mom is the one that's a medium, but she passed a while ago. So when I was
Mm,
like, because my mom had me when she was almost 40, like right, like her birthday's like 5 days before me, so 40. Um, and yeah, so my grandmother passed when I was like 7 or 8, I believe. So yes, I had a relationship with her, but I will say she's the one person that I like anytime I need spiritual support that I call on is my mom's mom, my grandma. We call her Big
mm.
Mom.
Oh, I just got chills. I say that because it's funny. I think that mother-daughter relationships are so interesting. And then I think grandma and granddaughter relationships are also so interesting because I always find that mother-daughter relationships are like hard, but then like the the granddaughter and daughter, what is it? The grandma and granddaughter relationship is always like amazing. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, I
Yeah.
think that if I look at my mom and like some of the trauma or, the things that have shaped her into being the way that she is with her fears and insecurities and whatever is definitely from my grandma. But my grandma is also the most accepting, like understanding person to me. So it's interesting how that like skips a generation. But I think that and again, I think sometimes it might piss her off because I'm like, my grandma's my best friend. Like, what are you talking about? That's my bitch. Like, I love her. And my mom's like, of course, like we butt heads, but then you're like best friends with my mom, who was like, great as a mom, but also like terrible in some ways too, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's so interesting, these mother daughter relationships, that it's not really talked a lot about a lot. Did you read I'm Glad My Mom Died?
No.
Have you never, by Jeanette McCurdy?
Uh-uh. Tell me about it.
This is her name, Sam, on iCarly. She was the blonde girl on iCarly.
Yes.
So I haven't read it yet, so I can't speak on it, but she wrote a book called I'm Glad My Mom Died, because her mom was like Jeanette McCurdy was a child actress. And
Mhm.
so her mom was kind of like mommy dearest, like just so awful to her, gave her an eating disorder, like all of these things, terrible, terrible, terrible to her. And then she died, and then she wrote this book. And so I'm so fascinated to read it. And again, my experience with my mother is not this way at all. My mom is amazing and she was a great mom, but I just think that the mother daughter relationship needs to be explored, because there is a lot there that people don't really talk about. And I think there's this notion too that, I mean, you asked me if I wanted a third kid, and I've always wanted to have a boy and a girl. I just want to experience what it's like to raise both. And I think there's a part of me that's terrified to raise a girl or to have a daughter. And that's probably why I'm a boy mom, is because I think that everyone you talk to just says like, oh, girls are hard. Girls are hard. They're like really hard. And I'm like,
Mm.
why are we saying this? Because raising a child is hard, just in general. But I mean, that's the consensus among everyone. So it's just interesting.
Oh, it's so interesting. I want to validate. I feel like everybody has that experience with their grandmother or someone else in the family. It's like, I love them. And then your mom's like, what the fuck? Wait.
Yeah.
I've heard the title of that book because it is so jarring. Like, I'm happy my mom died. And you're like, what? But I do think that,
Hmm.
as you say, there is so much that can be explored. Even when I went home over Christmas break, I did my mom's human design chart. And my favorite hot tip for everybody listening is to look at the life theme, which is like your soul's purpose kind of button. I feel like that one doesn't get enough hype. And my
Mm-mm.
mom's was to knock people into alignment by pointing out what's wrong. And I was like, "Oop, yep, that's I was like, that's it. Cause my mom is like the fastest to tell me, like, that's a terrible idea. No, no, no. But like I know that
Yeah.
she, on some way I'm like, well, that's her soul's purpose is to like kind of bring me back to reality. But on the off chance, sometimes she is not right and sometimes my ideas are correct and we just really butt heads. But
Hmm.
I think that one, doing your mom's human design chart, that's healing in itself, because I really learned about a lot about my mom. And I was like, oh, I feel kind of bad for her. Like she lives inside of like a freaking prison in her mind, because it's just like harsh. Like she's just very like harsh. But she also, like, that was kind of how her career like made her really successful, because she was able to like really kind of be innovative and create new ways of doing things based off of things being wrong with the system. So, it's interesting, but also it was very tricky to be her daughter and also to be someone that came out as like a pink fluff ball that just like wants to exist. She's like, "Hold up, wait a minute."
What, I mean, what was her human design type?
She is the same as me, which is a 1-3,
Okay.
establisher of knowledge and truth, except she's a manifesting generator and I'm a projector.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think human design is so interesting, and I think it would even be really cool to do like a reading for a mom and a mom and a daughter, because I think it could be really healing, like you're saying. But that's why I love human design. I mean, human design has helped me understand, not even just about myself, but I think the piece that people miss when they're explaining human design is it helps you understand how you interact with the world, which is hugely important. And I think when it comes to relationships, I mean, if there's anything I've learned in the last 6 months, like relationship building is everything. Your relationships and who you surround yourself with is literally the ticket or the downfall to your success. And
Mm.
so I think for me, understanding my human design also helps me understand the world around me better and how I interact with people. And then when I know somebody else's human design, I'm like, oh, okay, now we're rocking. Like now I get you. And I think it's just such a helpful tool.
So helpful. I will say it till I'm blue in the face. Everybody listening, you have to download the My Human Design app. Neither Amanda nor I are affiliated. I always say I should be, and I'm pissed about it, but I'm not. But it's My Human Design app. The my part is important because there's a bunch of human design in the app store. There's a free version, but I have the paid version. Is that what that's what you use too, right? My Human Design app.
No, so I have, but so I would read a lot of charts. So I use this other software that's free. So if anybody is listening
Oh,
and they do
cool.
want like a free version and they want to do their own research, it's mybodygraph.com and you just put in your information and it'll tell you. But I also recommend there's a book. I can give you the link to it, Anna Grace, because I think it's helpful for people to read. It's very thorough and breaks everything down. So I would just go to mybodygraph.com and then use the book in tandem, and I would read it through there. But I think human design, that's why I always suggest people go get a reading, like go have somebody actually break it down for you, because it can get a little jargony and a little complex to look at. And the somebody once told me so do you know Sahara Rose?
Yes.
So I did her Dharma Coaching Institute last in 2022, and or maybe it was 2023, I don't remember, but we had a whole thing on human design, and they were talking about it and how that information was literally channeled by this like random man. His name was Ra Uru Ra. It was just like channeled, so all of the language is a little weird and it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's super jarring. Sometimes it's like, I don't really resonate with that, but it's just the language that it was channeled through. And so when you can have somebody actually articulate like what all these things mean and apply it to like how you feel, that's when you can really use it to your advantage.
I definitely can confidently say, out of all the readings that I've done, human design has always been the one that's most successfully resonated. I actually can oftentimes channel people's, like, I typically know what their human design is before I even sit with them or meet them, just because it's so, um, just like so obvious in their Akashic record. So I guess for me,
Well,
like,
I was going to say to you, even, did I tell you that I was a projector? Because when we first got on, you're like, oh, yeah, we're both projectors. And I was like, did I tell you that?
I don't even know. I just knew that. So maybe I just knew
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you did.
I'm like, I do watch your content, but I don't know. I just know you're a projector, so I just
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just know. But yes, the mother daughter wound. It really all goes back to, I do believe that generation has like this martyrdom, which we still don't know if that's a word, but I'm going with it.
I think it's
And
a
I
word.
feel I feel like our generation is here to like flip the narrative and step into this ownership of being like, it's okay to be selfish. I had such a breakthrough last year of being like, it's okay to be selfish. I'm allowed to do things that I enjoy and I don't have to make my identity, Austin's fiance, wife, whatever. Like I'm allowed to be my own person. And I feel like that goes back to one of your how to keep your sex life spicy tips was like really staying, like you're being your own person. It's like the number one thing.
Oh my gosh, you have to. I think that so many people, I mean, here's the thing. Whenever you're in a long-term relationship and you're raising kids and you have your own careers and there's all these different schedules and things that you're doing and activities, sometimes you can start to feel like roommates. Like it just happens. And that's not a bad thing. Like I think that's so normal for life to get in the way. I think people have this weird idea that like my relationship has to be first or my kids always have to be first or and it's not so rigid like that. It doesn't have to be so black and white. Like sometimes your career is gonna take precedent. Sometimes your relationship is gonna take precedent. Sometimes your kids, it's gonna ebb and flow. And so I think for for us, I one thing that I had to realize was so helpful was seeing my man be with his friends is so attractive to me. And if that means that he's like not going to be having some quality time with me, that's fine because when he comes back, like I'm going to be so much more attracted to him and it's better for us because he gets that confidence of, "Oh, this is who I am. And my Lucas is a 5-1 profile. And the 5 line are people who live in a projection field. So it's funny, anytime I ever ask him, how would you describe yourself? He will always say, well, my friends would describe me as this. He never
Mm,
says, I think I'm this. It's always, I think my friends would say, if you ask my friends, and so it's all about what people think of him. That's what how he believes to be true about himself. That's how he
mm,
identifies. And so when he's around people that are good, genuine people that make him feel so lit up, he is that energy. And that's why I love it so much because I'm like, wow, you are actually the truest version of yourself when you're with your friends. So go be with them and then come
mm.
back to me. And like, yeah, that's yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, it really is because I think what you were saying too is that people have this sort of false belief system, like how you said everything is going to ebb and flow. And I think people put a lot of pressure on their sex life, first of all. Way too much pressure that, like, if it has to look this certain way, or like you said, there's going to be times where you feel like roommates, or, I know Austin and I don't have small children. Obviously, Zane is 12, but I know when you have small children, everyone's like, it's a little harder. Okay. You've got people and little people around you all the time. You're not like, there's not this like spontaneity in your sex life like there once was, because there's like little tiny humans watching. So, anyways, all that being said, I think people put a lot of pressure on it. So, you posted something the other day about how much it ebbs and flows, which I think people need to hear. I went on a retreat recently and this girl was talking about one of her friends. She like has this crazy rule where she like will not go longer than a week. Like, even if they're traveling, she won't even be away from her husband longer than a week because she feels like they can't go longer than 1 week without having sex. And I'm like, see, that's crazy. Like, I'll travel for 3 weeks and I'm like, I'm out of town. Like, I just think
That
people
feels like a codependency issue.
it does. But I'm just saying, I do think everybody has like a foggy relationship with what it actually looks like to be in a healthy, intimate relationship. Everybody has their shit. Everyone does.
And let me just say too, I think the conversation of pressure is important because I used to struggle with binge eating and overeating and then like yo-yo dieting, like literally just going from one diet to the next, being restrictive and then binging. And so for me, when people ask me, how did you heal from your distorted relationship with food and fitness, it was literally me. I took the pressure off of it. I think when there's pressure and there's stress and there's a tension on certain things, that's when it becomes an issue versus if you kind of just put your focus on other things and get some type of fulfillment from other places, it goes away. And that's the same
Mm.
thing with like sex too, is if you're finding that like you're constantly thinking about how shitty your sex life is, like it's not going to get better because you're constantly thinking about the shitty sex life and you're putting that it's like it's not even it's just like how I imagine it is like this pressure on top of it. And so I think that for anyone listening to, whether it's sex, whether it's eating, whether it's whatever, like sometimes you just stress causes more harm. We know that stress is the root of all disease. So if you're putting so much stress on one thing, maybe just like pump the brakes for a second. Go do something else. Go focus on something else, and I guarantee you're gonna come back to it, and you're gonna be like, oh, that actually doesn't hold as much weight as it used to.
Not quite as heavy. I channeled through this analogy or metaphor from the Akashic Records a while ago, and it exactly articulates what you just said perfectly. It's like, think about it. If you fall down, or Lennox falls down and busts his little knee, what are we gonna do if we have like a little wound? You're gonna kiss it and you're gonna say, "Oh, I hope it feels better, love you, whatever." You're not gonna stare at it all day, every day, and be like, "Heal, get better, faster, heal, heal." No, you just like look away and you look down and take the band-aid off and it's gone. Right? It's like you don't think about it. Our natural state is like healing, shit's working out, but we stop it from working out when we obsess and put pressure on it. Then it can't. But it's like, if you have a cut on your arm, you put a band-aid on it and you forget about it and then you go back and it's healed. We have so many wounds in our life that we love to poke. We love to prod. We love to pour salt in them.
No, Anna Grace, literally, this is me and my eczema. I feel like it was the the most, I mean, the most thought that consumed my mind for months. And I swear, and the last week when I said, no, I'm not putting my antibiotic ointment on, I'm just trying to do this shit naturally, and I stopped thinking about it or constantly checking it, it started to heal. And I was like, oh. And it's funny because like the second I start posting about the eczema, everyone's like, try this, try this, try this. And I'm like, actually, I just like did a visualization meditation last night that I was healing. And then I stopped thinking about it and it's like already healing. So it's like, it's wild how much your mind really does contribute to your health and your well-being.
It's I mean, it's everything. I always say any type of disease, illness, chronic, whatever. We were just talking about this before we got on the mic. Anything a doctor's ever told us, oh, you won't be able to heal that. You're like, you can. You just can. The body is always healing. I don't care what anybody says or what anybody tells you. I've been doing Joe Dispenza meditations every morning, and I
Love
like
him.
I go in and out with him like when I need them, or I also love Superhuman. It's like more of a feminine energy. Are you familiar with Superhuman app?
I've heard of that app, but I haven't used it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same type of work, but it's my friend Mimi who's got like way more feminine energy. So sometimes I like being in feminine, but some Dr. Joe is like yells at you. He's like, feel it, come on, heart, breathe, and you're like, oh, okay. But like sometimes I kind of need that, I kind of need like a kick in the pants, and
I think I need that more often than the feminine, honestly.
yeah, yeah, like, it just depends on my mood, but I have both. But I am in a phase of being like, "Okay, I really wanna clear out my systems and, like, visualize," and it is just so crazy, like, I had this, like, really crazy shoulder tightness, like, I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders. I did a meditation yesterday, it was a 20-minute meditation, it was no big deal, and I visualized literally, like, it was like a pressure thing, it was like I was putting pressure on myself to do all these things. And I visualize just like these like hands just like releasing and just like letting go of like the pressure on my shoulders. I woke up today, no fucking shoulder pain. Like for the first time in 2 months. Like no tightness. I've been getting a massage once a week for at least a month or two now. Just gone. Just visualized it away. I was like, what the fuck? I've spent like $1,000 on these shoulders.
No, it's so crazy how it really does work. And it's funny, I'm laughing so hard at how you were imitating Joe Dispenza because he really is. He's like, feel it. Can you tune into the energy? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, Joe. No, but I think like the best example of that for me was giving birth because I had a
Mm.
C-section with my first, and then I did a VBAC. I did a vaginal with my second. And I loved my birth experience. I did hemorrhage the second time, which was scary, but it still was a really good birth experience. And I did it natural. My water broke at like 3:30. I went to the hospital, got there at like 8 p.m. was when I started getting into like active later labor. 1 a.m. I started pushing and he was out at 1:51. And literally the pushing was the hardest part. The contractions, I kid you not. People think I'm crazy for this, and I don't even mean to like talk about this in a way to like pat my own back, but I did not feel pain. Like literally did not feel pain. And I think it
Oh.
was because I was in such a headspace I've never been in my entire life. I had the birth playlist, prepared. I had the essential oils prepared, the acupressure, all the things. I did not want any of it. I just needed silence and maybe Lucas to hold my hand like every now and then. But like if he touched me, I couldn't do it. If people were talking, I was like, shut up, stop talking. If the music was on, I was like, turn it off, can't. Like I didn't want to be touched. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to be in my breathing and in the zone. And I think because I was in such a strong mindset, no pain. It was
Mm.
wild.
I am obsessed with that because I want to do a natural birth so badly. I think about it all the time. It's actually really weird how I like, get excited about that. And I just really believe that I can do it. But I don't know. I guess I haven't had a lot of positive examples. Like people are like, it's the worst pain ever. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to hear that. Shh, not me. I'm a unicorn.
No, it's really, I mean, because here's the thing. I mean, women have been having natural births for the fucking beginning of time. Like this is not a new concept. It's not like a taboo. It's weird that it's taboo now because it's
Hmm.
not. It was never taboo. And so your body was designed for it, meaning like your body pumps out so many different hormones and chemicals while you're doing it, like adrenaline, oxytocin, that act as natural painkillers. And so, truly, like, yes, it was uncomfortable. The contractions aren't fun, but were they painful? No. Like, I cannot even sit here and say that it was painful. It was just more so uncomfortable. And so, whenever people are, talking about their birth plans and their negative birth plans, I'm like, I promise you it wasn't painful. Like, I promise, because I don't want people to have that negative connotation of birth, because it really is like this transformative time. It's such a portal if you allow it to be. And I think that, you know, here's the thing too. If somebody asked me, well, what would you do for your third? Would you get a C-section or do a vaginal again? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. C-section sounds kind of nice, but that's only because I hemorrhaged. But honestly, I think like the natural birth was such an experience that I wish all women get to do if they have the opportunity to, and they're in the right health to do so, and it works out. Obviously, whatever happens is meant for you. But I think that I just wish everyone gets to experience that, because now, like, I go to the gym with my husband and we're doing planks, and I mean, I work out, but I'm not like hitting it every day because it's just kids. And I'm holding a longer plank than him, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "I've given birth, and like naturally." And at this point, there's nothing, like, there's no ceiling for me. There's nothing that I can't do, because I've done what people say you can't do, or like I've put my body in such crazy experiences that I know I'm resilient enough to overcome them.
Mm. And you are. You're a star. I actually wanted to ask you that. I would be so curious to know how you gave birth or what your plan was, because I do feel like you have this like unmatched mindset, and it's really inspiring to me because that's how I feel. I'm like, when I went on my second date with Austin, he was like, I don't even know why we were having this conversation, but he was like, I think it'd be so cool for you to do a water birth. And I was like, what an odd thing to say on our very early on date. But he was always from the beginning. He's like, we're gonna get married. And I was kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But now it's so funny because he's always had such foresight, because I didn't know anything about water births at that time of my life. I was just not thinking about it. And now I'm like, it makes perfect sense because I'm a mermaid and I live in the ocean. I'm like, I would just love to do a water birth. But I think you have those mindsets where it's just such a foreign concept until you do it. You're like, what would that even be like? So thank you for sharing
You
your
know,
experience.
I'm so fucking jealous that you live near the ocean. Like, I think I saw one of your reels where you were talking about how your ritual before you do readings is going to the beach, and I'm so jealous.
It's so nice. You got to come back. You got to come visit me in Florida.
I know, I really need to.
Okay, my computer is about to die, or else I would talk to you for 6 more hours. So, Amanda, please tell everyone where they can find you, where they can watch your vlogs, and keep up with all of your fun, crazy life that I'd love to watch so much.
This was so fun, first of all. But okay, you can find me on Instagram at Mands Fowler. So that's MANDS Fowler. I'm the same on TikTok. And then also, my husband and I have a podcast, What's the Recipe Podcast. It's What's the Recipe with a question mark. And so we're just What's the Recipe Pod on Instagram and on TikTok. And really, our whole mission is to interview people on their unique recipes to success, whether it's in career or relationships. I think we're both really fascinated by how people are power couples, or how people built something from the ground up, and really highlighting that there's not one singular recipe, there's not one singular way of doing things. And so we just want to make that accessible information to people and inspire and empower, like I said. So that's kind of the best way to find me and support me right now. We did just launch some merch. We're doing some hats, and
I
so we're going to drop
saw.
that soon. So I'm so excited about it. My 26th birthday is January 28th, and we're going skiing in Keystone. And so I texted my group chat for everyone who's going, and I was like, guys, I'm creative directing a What's the Recipe photo shoot for our new hat in the snow. It's going to be awesome. So everybody stay tuned for that, because I'm excited.
Oh, that's going to be so good. I can't wait to see it. I'm locked in. Congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us today. And I just love you so much.
I love you. This was so fun.
Bye. As always, I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you feel so called, or if it feels aligned, I would love for you to leave me a review here I always love reading your beautiful thoughts and messages. And also you can find me at Anna Grace Newell on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I will link all of my courses, AG University course curriculum in the show notes, along with if you're interested in booking an Akashic Records reading with me. My scheduling link goes out in my newsletter. It goes out once a month and it's completely free. I would love to have you there. As always, I'm a proud professor and you get an A+ for making it all the way through the end. Love you.